What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Hockeytown University. You are here with me once again, Zack, and one of the beautiful, lovely co-hosts, Matt. Derek is lost in Vegas somewhere to some EDM concert. I was gonna say he's lost in the forest, but obviously that's just a Michigan thing. So it's just Leslie and I today. Buddy, do you miss Derek yet? I don't.
I missed Derek the minute that his plane took off and he left our beautiful state of Michigan. I don't know how we're going to get through this episode without him. I always see his smiling face on the other side of the screen, and it gives me the courage and the tenacity to keep going. But for the sake of not only you and myself, but the viewers too, I will try and power through this. Yeah, it's safe to say that he is definitely lost in more ways than one in Vegas. I hope he hasn't lost all of his money because I don't think he can get a plane ticket back. But being stuck in Vegas, there's worse places to be stuck. So really not the end of the world for him. But yeah, I hope he's having a good time. And I'm sure he's going to watch this episode. And yeah, hi, Derek. Have fun if you're watching.
Yeah, if you are watching, Derek, I'm so sorry I did not give you my dollar bet slip that I had from when we were there last year. But because Derek is not with us today, we do have a special guest. Bobblehead Henrik Zetterberg. And for those of you who do not
Shit.
know, this is the giveaway that we were talking about in the last episode. This is a Twitter giveaway. We would appreciate you guys if you are not following us on Twitter right now. You can follow us on Hockeytown U Pod. Yes, at Hockeytown U Pod on Twitter. Make sure that you give us a follow, you like and retweet the tweet, and then tag a friend. And then make sure that they're telling a friend as well that Hockeytown University podcast sent you guys for this nice Henrik Zetterberg bobblehead that I was able to get earlier this year. I can't remember which game it was for, but it's completely sealed. Somehow I was able to get an extra one. So yeah, if you guys are interested in bobbleheads or just huge Henrik Zetterberg fans or Red Wings fans in general, make sure you're going on to at Hockeytown U Pod on Twitter. Follow us, like the tweet, retweet it, and tag a friend. It really does go a long way for us, and you guys get this really cool bobblehead that's never been touched, never been opened. It's fantastic. And I'll ship it nicely with care because I had a bobblehead shipped to me and it was completely destroyed in transit. So make sure you're doing that. Be on the lookout for future giveaways. We got plenty of other stuff that we would like to see you guys enjoy more than us. So thanks for watching once again. For those of you that are returning, thank you. For those of you that are new, thank you for joining us. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button if you are new. And if you're returning, and everyone else, make sure you are smashing that like button. It makes Leslie's smile go up. Just like that. Yes.
Just
And
like that.
And as always, make sure you are rating us 5 stars on Spotify if you guys are listening to us on Spotify. That truly does go a long way. And hitting that follow button as well. So let's go ahead and break it down what we got in store for today. Today, for Red Wings news, I got nothing. Leslie, I don't know if you got any Red Wings news. The only thing I really got is just the World Championships, which Dominik Kubalik is on fire, so we'll touch on that. Around the league news, we got the East and Western Conference Finals beginning tonight. We'll go in depth a little bit about that and who we are choosing to win to make it to the finals. We'll talk about a little bit about Arizona Coyotes and their struggles to find home base.
Boy, oh
Then
boy.
we have, yeah, it's nuts. Then we got a little fun game to play. Leslie agreed to let me make it a surprise for him, so I'll keep it that way. And then we have a draft prospect profile of David Reinbacher. So stick around, stay with us, and let's have a good episode. So let's go ahead and kick it off with the Red Wings news. Like I said, no news, just World Championship stuff. Dominik Kubalik. Let's talk about him for a little bit. In 4 games, he's got 10 points. I don't know exactly how many goals it is. It might be like 6 or something like that. Maybe it's 5 and 5. I would have to double check on that. But Leslie, is there a possible chance that Dominik Kubalik could take this and carry it into the 23-24 season for the Detroit Red Wings?
Yes, there is definitely a chance because I remember like the first, I don't even know, maybe it was like 12 or 15 games he was on the team. He had something like, I think he was a point per game player in those first few games that he was on the team. So yeah, you've seen that he can do it. The only problem is he doesn't do it consistently, which is probably why he did not get offered by Chicago, and he came over to us and is making whatever it is, like $2.5 million a year. But I really hope that he can find some consistency. We know that he can absolutely snipe the puck. Like, he's got a great one timer, and honestly, his wrist shot is really good too. I don't really know why he doesn't get more goals than he does. Maybe it's a confidence thing. Maybe it's just the talent he's playing around. I couldn't really tell you, but yeah, if he keeps it up, it's gonna be a fun season. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I guess it's I don't want to be mean to the other people that he's playing against or the people that he's playing with, but it's almost kind of like practice for them out there, right? I mean, it's the same thing for Joe Valeno, Lucas Raymond, Jonathan Berggren, Mo Seider. Mo Seider had one hell of a game today with Team Germany against. Oh boy, why can't I remember who it was against? But anyways, I'll figure it out here in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Like, how do you convert what they're doing in this tournament to the NHL, where the talent is more revolved, or what's the word I want to use, is more relevant to their um style of play, so just talent in general. Jesus, I don't know how to use, but Derek is spewing into me right now. I am Derek today. Leslie, you might
Well,
have to.
careful with what you say there. That's going to be taken out of context, and you're really going to regret that you just said that.
I might. I'm not gonna edit that out.
Yeah. No, please
But
don't.
no, like, what's the conversion rate for, Dominic Kubalik's 10 points in these 4 games going into the NHL, right? The talent isn't the same as it is in this tournament going into the NHL. So, while you're
Yeah.
right, I think at the start of last season, him and Dylan Larkin were both at like uh 2 point 2 point per game like pace within the first like 10 or 15 games, like you said. It was pretty ridiculous at the start. Do I think Dominic Kubalik could do it? Absolutely. Could he stay consistent, like you said? Probably not. That is one of the reasons why Chicago did not tender him, and that's how he ended up with us on a $2.5 million deal for 2 years. I do have a weird feeling though that this Red Wings team is going to be different. Second year under Lalone, second year where majority of the team is coming back. Granted, you don't have Tyler Bertuzzi and you don't have Philip Hronek or Jacob Vrana, even though he played like 5 games last year. I think in we're looking down a road of good things to come. I do think that Dominic Kubalik can establish himself to be 25 plus goals somehow. I think that he is a prime candidate to come out bursting out of the scene. I do think Lucas Raymond and Jonathan Berggren are starting to catch on to that as well, playing into this tournament. It's almost like practice, like I said, to these players. Would you agree with me on that, or do you think you got some better talent in there than what I'm saying?
It's, oh boy, it's really so tough to kind of figure out a conversion of talent between playing in the NHL and playing in the World Championships, because it's definitely true that this is not a best on best. This is not like the World Cup of hockey that we've had in years past. Um, but that being said, all these rosters from these countries were carefully selected to be the best players available that each team could get. Like, Team Sweden actually has a really, really good roster if you look at it. And I mean, people just kind of assume that, like, oh, they see what the U.S. puts together and what Canada puts together, and they kind of like figure this tournament is a little bit of a joke. But for those European teams like Team Finland, Sweden, even Team Germany, which, I mean, their talent isn't to the level of those two countries, but they put everything they have into those rosters because it means something different to them. Like, this is a tournament that they kind of all really buy into, and it's really almost like an honor and a privilege to play for those teams. So I wouldn't really necessarily say that it's practice. I actually, while we were talking about Dominic Kubalik, I just looked up a tweet that our main account retweeted. Dominic Kubalik is leading all players in points in this tournament. He has
Yeah.
6 goals and 4 assists. That's that's pretty awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just the nature of what team he's playing for. Maybe he's the best player. I haven't really looked in depth to all the rosters, but that could have something to do with it. But I don't know. I think this tournament is just a really nice, almost kind of like refresher after these player seasons are done, to kind of just go out there and keep playing some more hockey and just kind of, don't let the rust, like, not like shake the rust off, but just kind of keep staying active into the off season. So I think that's probably the biggest benefit this tournament gives to those players.
Yeah, and you look at some of these players too, and we named off a few. You got Dominic Kubalik, who really didn't have that great of an ending to the year. Uh, I couldn't even tell you how many points he put up in his last 10 games, to be honest with you. I could probably pull it up on Elite Prospects. But, same thing with Lucas Raymond. Same thing technically with Jonathan Berger. And Jonathan Berger was playing on the fourth line at one point towards the end of the season. Mo Seider did Mo Seider. That kid just loves to play in general. You probably could tell him to take a whole month off and he'd be like, no, I still want to go play. I want to go do something. Who else is in the tournament? Oli Mata, he was kind of up and down. He had a great hot start to the season, but yeah, he was up and down throughout the end of the season. Who else am I missing that's in this tournament? I said Lucas Raymond, Yanni Burgers, Kubalik, Seider, Joe
Joe Veleno.
Veleno. Joe Veleno, he was
Carter,
having,
well, Carter Mazur's not on the roster yet, but Carter Mazur is
yeah,
playing.
and Carter Mazer, and you mentioned this last episode that Coach Lalone probably had a huge impact as to how and why he made the team. And it's good that he's on the third line. And he scored a goal the other day, and it was one hell of a shot, too. I
Yeah.
watched Lucas Raymond and Yanni Burgers. Yanni Burgers got bumped up to the top line. He started off on the third line. He's playing with Lucas Raymond and Leo Carlson. Uh, Start knocking on the door for that third overall pick from Columbus Blue Jackets. Let's see if we can get ourselves a Leo Carlson somehow.
Put
Not for
out some
me. I don't
offers,
want to
baby.
I don't want to break the bank to do that, but I know some of y'all out there probably do, and I would love to hear what you guys have to offer for that. If you guys want to leave it down in the comments, but we'll touch on that in another episode, I think. But yeah, it's hard to touch on the conversion rate. I just really do hope that what all these players are doing in this tournament translates over into next season. So, like I said, I think the reason why some of these players are here is because they understood that they didn't have the greatest year last year, and there's still room for development. So it's good to see that these players are taking the proactive approach and keeping their wheels grinding and going into next season. So that's it for Red Wings news, I think. Around the league news, Leslie, the conference finals begin today. It's against the Florida Panther Kitty Cats versus the Carolina Hurricanes. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Did you see the artworks by both social media teams, by the way, on Twitter today?
I did not. All I saw on Twitter was people celebrating the death of the Arizona Coyotes. That's pretty much it.
We'll touch on that next. But yeah, they were going head to not really head to head on Twitter, but they put out some amazing graphics for the conference finals. So that was really cool to see. It's good to see that these two teams are having like a friendly rivalry in that sense, at least online. Who knows what it's going to be like on the ice tonight. One thing that I do have a badger about, and I will apologize to Leslie on this episode because I was a little mean to him at the end of last episode when he was going to go on his rant about the game being at 10 p.m. It was bullshit that that game was 10 p.m. on Sunday. But I also find it bullshit that the Panthers and Hurricanes game is on at 8 p.m. tonight. It's an East Coast game. Why are they doing it? Is it for the West Coast people so that they can make it home before the game starts at 5 p.m. their time?
Well, to be completely honest with you, Zach, I did see the start time, and part of me was a little irritated, and then I kind of started to think about it. Don't even think about it in hockey sense. Think about like every like Sunday night or Monday night football. It's all at 8:30. I think that's probably just the prime time slot for a game of that magnitude. That's probably just the slot where you can get the most amount of views nationwide and maybe even worldwide. I'm not a TV executive, but if I had to wager a guess, I'd say it's just that's the best time slot to get the most amount of views. I don't know. I think it just all comes down to money, like everything.
Yeah, for sure. No, I like for me, it's weird, right? Because the Red Wings games, granted, we're not in the playoffs, so it's different, right? These are the playoffs. It's Eastern Conference Finals, Western Conference Finals. All the week games started at 7, so even the home crowd could make it to those games, which is okay. But the Red Wings have fans all over the world. Okay, maybe I'm just trying to make it so close to a comparison to the Wings and I actually can't. I don't know. I just think
I
it's
don't
weird
think
that
you're
it's
going
like,
to get a direct comparison, honestly, because the
no.
thing is, like, the Red Wings, yeah, we have a lot of fans all over the world and all over the country for sure. A regular season like Game 25 of the Red Wings doesn't get even close to the same amount of views as a conference final Game 1. I mean, it just doesn't really scratch the surface. I really think that's just what it is. I think the NHL, and it's definitely true that the NHL has had issues with getting viewers in, which really that's kind of self-inflicted by the NHL.
Yeah,
I think this is just them
100%.
seeing, hey, this is the best time slot to put it. Everyone's going to tune in because it's 8:30. Everyone's off work. No one's got anything to do. People are at the bar. The bars are playing it on the TV, and everyone's going to stop what they're doing and watching. That's probably all it just boils down to be honest.
The one thing that that I will say that I'm shocked about is that the Dallas and Vegas game tomorrow is on at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Honestly, I'm surprised that that's not on at 9 p.m. or even 9:30. I think Dallas is just an hour behind us. Yes. And then Vegas is obviously, are they 2?
2 hours, I think. I think
Mountain
it's
time?
2. Yeah, I think
Oh,
so.
thank
I have
God.
no idea. But,
Okay.
I'll just refer you back to my previous point about that. That's pretty much why. I think they're going to do the same thing in the Stanley Cup final. I'm pretty sure it's usually 8 or 8:30. Just got to get those views. I think that's all it is.
Yeah, and also it's not TNT. I think it's ESPN as well. I think ESPN really does. I know a lot. Okay, so I don't really want to go too far in depth with it. We all know that the NHL signed the ESPN contract. Okay, everyone said, "Oh yeah, this will be great. Like it's a lot of money for the league. Now everyone's salary cap goes up. Blah blah blah. They're gonna get more viewership. Blah blah blah." But the issue is that ESPN also has deals with MLB and they also have deals with the NBA. Guess who's third in line? The NHL. If there's a huge primetime baseball game on, and I think that that's exactly what happened for the game on Sunday,
That's
the 10
exactly what
p.m. game.
happened.
Yeah. Who was it? I think it was Charles Barkley with Spin Chicklets. He was the one who talked about that. So that's where I stole the idea from. So sorry, Charles Barkley. I love you, man. You're funny. I love the fact that you're a hockey fan. Maybe get
Dude,
in
how
with
was
Snoop.
that interview though? That interview
What's
was
that?
amazing. I don't know if you listened to the interview, but oh my god.
He
That
said a
I
lot
felt
of good
spoiled
stuff.
listening to that interview. That was amazing.
He genuinely sounds like that he cares about the sport of NHL, and he
He does.
straight up said like, what was it? He commented on the dude getting the 75 stitches in the face from Winnipeg, and he's like, yeah, an NBA dude would retire right on the spot. Like, yeah, I'm done with my career. Give me my
Is he
paycheck. I'm
wrong?
done. No, no,
Not at
not
all.
at all.
He'd walk over to the GM and be like, "Buy me out. I'm done. It's my last game."
So yeah, it's just unfortunate that Gary Bettman, and yes, you can say it's Gary Bettman because he is the one who ultimately decides, these deals going through. And it's just like, why are you putting? Okay, you can't classify Jack. Maybe you can. Some of you might. Jack Eichel, a top 10 player. I don't really see him as a top 10 player anymore. Maybe if you asked me like 3 or 4 years ago, I probably would have said yes. But he's definitely working his way back up there. He was MIA for basically like 2.5 years because of his back issues. Yeah, I think it's bullshit that you're putting them at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I mean, that's great for the West Coast fans. You guys get to see him at 7 p.m. Whatever. I'd love to watch Connor McDavid just as much as the next person, Leon Draisaitl, too. I just think it's bullshit that ESPN wouldn't just. They didn't even have it on ESPN too. If you guys haven't watched the Spin Chicklets episode with Charles Barkley, I do recommend going to watch that. But if not, I'll try to speak out as much as I can. But it sounds like Leslie knows a little bit more about it than I do. But I just think it's bullshit the way that the NHL is operating with ESPN, and I think it's bullshit that how ESPN is just tossing the NHL in the backseat like it's the ugly stepdaughter or son or just the dog that is. I don't even know. I'm probably going to edit this part out. But anyways, Leslie, save me real quick.
Well, everyone listening is really gonna want me to go on a big rant, like a big rage-filled rant. It's been like 4 days since that game even aired, so I've definitely cooled down a little bit on it. But I can still tell all of you right now that my opinion has not changed. It's absolute total bullshit that a second round playoff game of the NHL is getting relegated to the late slot over a Sunday night baseball game. And I watched a little bit of that game waiting for the game. I think it was game 7 or maybe a 6. I don't even know what it was. But I watched a little bit of that baseball game waiting for the Oilers to play. It was a blowout. It was like 9-1 Boston Red Sox. I was like, What are we doing here? Like, this game is over. You can switch
Of course
over
it
to the
was.
hockey game. And then they didn't even switch over. They put it on a split screen. And you'll
Oh my
miss like
God.
2 goals because they went over late. And I was like, oh, well, I'm glad that I got to see, another 3 runs batted in. And now this game is even more in the hole. Like, what are we doing here? And I want to get mad at ESPN. And I think ultimately it does come down to them and them kind of deciding what's more important. You kind of have to point the finger at the NHL and Gary Bettman because they signed that contract with ESPN, and I wouldn't be surprised if they only looked at that big number that ESPN was going to offer them, and they're like, "Whoa, that's a big number. How many zeros at the end of that number? Oh wow, okay, I'll sign. I don't need to read the fine print. I'm good." So yeah, they signed that contract, and pretty much ever since then, ESPN has just had all of the same what they're going to do. Like, sure, the NHL can appeal it. They can say, hey, you've got this basketball game on at 3:30. When it's over, how about you play our game? No, we can't do that. Sunday Night Baseball gets more viewers. Like, okay, yeah, sure, Sunday Night Baseball gets more viewers. That's because it's not on at 10 o'clock Eastern. It's on at 7:30. I mean, if you move the NHL game to 7:30, I don't even know, but I think the viewership numbers, I saw them a few days ago, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was somewhere around like 1.5 million. If they put it in a primetime slot, it's easily 2 million, probably even over 2 million. It was a pretty good game. I stayed up late for it. It was a really good game. I tell you what, it wasn't a blowout in baseball, the most boring sport on earth. I'm sorry, I'll say it right now. It's an awful sport. It's just two dudes playing catch, and occasionally they smack the ball with a wooden stick. That's not a sport. Um, but yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous. I don't know, but I think we all kind of saw this coming with the ESPN contract, and I don't think a lot of us wanted to admit this was going to happen, but deep down we kind of knew that hockey would just get the back seat. And I think there were some people naive enough to be like, "Oh, well, ESPN wants to spend this much money to promote hockey. They don't even talk about it on their morning shows." I watch Get Up every single morning. Hockey is on there for 3 minutes, maybe, and it's usually like Toronto or Edmonton, who, newsflash, they're not in the playoffs anymore. So I bet you they won't play anything until the Stanley Cup final is over. So yeah, that's my rant on it. I really wish that we could get to another network that respects the NHL a lot more. I will say this though, ESPN, they are what they are at this point. Their hockey crew is very good on TV. I do like Kevin Weeks a lot. PK Subban, he was made for TV. And also we have TNT. TNT is light years ahead of ESPN in
Yeah.
terms of the NHL. I mean, that's a network that is absolutely deserving of that product on there. I love what TNT has done. They really have kind of breathed new life into the game of hockey. And yeah, every time it's on TNT, I usually like tune off in between intermissions because I'm just like, I don't want to watch talking heads on my TV for the next 10 minutes. I tune into every single one of those intermission reports because they're always so entertaining. So there you go, rant over.
No, yeah, I'm a big TNT fan. I love that crew. ESPN did a good job. I prefer TNT a little bit more. I just think they're a little more lively. It's not as controlled, I guess. PK Subban, I have a love-hate relationship with him. On TV, I feel like he tries to be the standout guy a little bit too hard, but nonetheless, he has a great character as a person all around. Just a great dude, and he does a lot of great things for the community as well. So shout out to PK Subban on our pod. We love you, buddy. Keep up the good work in what you do.
Shout out
Uh,
PK.
but let's go
And
back to
honestly,
our
he
original.
does try a little hard sometimes, but more often than not, it kind of comes off and he hits the spot with it. I really like
Yeah,
him on there. It's just a nice change of pace. You watch like the halftime report and Monday Night Football, and you got all the boring ass old white dudes on there. Just, oh yeah, oh, they got to score more points than the other team in the second half. I think that's the key to victory right here. Hey, if that quarterback doesn't throw as many interceptions, maybe he's going to actually win the game for them. We don't need to hear that. Get me PK Subban on that intermission talking about how fat Lizzo is. I love it. I'll tune in every time.
So let's go into the topic that we started originally talking about, and that's the East and Western Conference Finals, which begin tonight. The Panther Kitty Cats and the Hurricanes. So Leslie, Who do you got going to the finals? Let's touch on the Eastern Conference Finals first. What do you got going on in this conference? What are the games going to? Who do you got winning and why?
Oh boy. Well, starting with the Eastern, this is really tough. I almost kind of feel like this is a pick 'em. I feel like no matter who I pick, I'm I'm gonna be wrong either way. But it's almost not like a wrong pick, if that makes any sense. Like for example, like Florida through this whole playoffs has just been bullying every team they've played. I mean, they kind of got in a little bit of a hole against Boston, and then they kind of just turned the Jets on and they started forechecking hard, man. I mean, they were already a good forechecking team in the regular season, but they dialed it up to 11. And they just won every puck battle, always took it to the boards, and you knew that there was going to be someone on the boards, whether it's a guy like Kachuk or Cousins or Bennett, whoever it is, they're going to win that battle, get the puck out, and there's going to be someone in the slot. And that's pretty much just how they won all their games. They just outworked their opponents. And definitely worked against Toronto. I mean, that's the winning formula against Toronto right there. You bully them and they don't have an answer. They don't have a response to that. I don't think they're going to be able to do that against Carolina. Carolina is just that type of team that all across the board, they play so well across all four lines, all three pairs of defense. They're just not going to give up the sloppy passes that a Toronto would. They're not going to feel the pressure from the forecheck. They're honestly going to equal the amount of force that Florida will bring to them. So that's why I have this series going 7. And I think even with that being said, I think I'm still going to go with Florida. I just I get a big team of destiny vibes from these guys, and I'm also saying this. I'm going to be completely transparent. I do have a future on them. I bought when they were real low odds, so I stand to make a pretty penny if they win. So I'd like to see them win and then go on to the finals. But it's going to be a bloodbath either way. Whoever wins this series, it's going to take a full 7, I think.
Yeah, I was talking to my buddy Jeff. Jeff, shout out to you if you are watching this episode. I know you
Shout out
just
Jeff.
messaged me asking me to play NHL 23, but I can't right now. I'm recording. Anyways, yeah, Leslie, to be honest, I think it is just a pick me. Like, I think you literally there's no wrong choice. But any choice you make obviously can be the wrong choice. I think it could really go either way. I think based on what the Florida Panthers have done, um, based on his history, the team that goes through the most, especially in those first two rounds, usually end up going on to making it to the final and somehow pulling it off. Um, Other than the Montreal Canadiens that one year where they basically got swept in the finals. But other than that, yeah, they're a heavy hitting team. They know how to score. They know how to climb back. I would really be interested in picking the Panthers. However, I agree with you that I think Carolina will just play heavy defensively on them, and I think they're going to be able to shut them down really hard. And I think Frederick Anderson has been doing a really good job in these playoffs in each series. He's just been standing on his head. He lets in a couple bad goals here and there, um, but he always finds a way. And that defense is just insane. And the forward core, I mean, they might not be the offensively gifted team, but when they get their opportunities, they make them count, and they are a very deep team. Both teams are very deep. I I do think it's going to go to a 6 or 7 game series. Leslie, I might have to side with you. I think I might go with the Carolina Hurricanes. They got Teuvo Teravainen coming back tonight. He's starting. He hasn't played in a long time. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I would not be shocked if the Panthers somehow pulled it off because you look at the Hurricanes and they really haven't had to battle through adversity this whole entire playoffs. Who'd they play against first? It was the New York Islanders. Um, both pretty much the same team, defensively sounded teams, great goaltending. Um, I guess that was the hardest challenge for them. Then you go playing against the New Jersey Devils. You beat them 4-1 in the series, and you've been sitting there ever since. That might hurt them a little bit too. So who knows? I would not be shocked if the Florida Panthers took the first game. I don't know. There's a bunch of different ways, but I do think I think I'm going to go Canes in 7. I think it's going to go to a game 7. I think it's going to be a real hard battle series. Um, so it sounds like we both got Canes. You said Canes in 7?
Florida in
6?
7.
Oh shit.
Florida in
All
7.
right. Well, we're going against each other. All right. I got Canes, you got Panthers, and Derek will just be stuck in La La Land. We'll ask him when he
He
gets
just
back.
hopes both teams have fun.
Just have fun out there. All right. So let's go over to the Western Conference Finals, where you got the Dallas Stars and you got the Vegas Golden Knights. I also think this one's tricky, but not as tricky as the Eastern Conference Finals. I think I got the Stars here in 5. Um I think
Hmm.
Dallas is just a way deeper team. Um I think that Dallas's defense and goaltending is going to outshine Vegas in general. Vegas was able to close down on an Edmonton Oilers team who played no defense and no goaltending, but were able to outscore them and shut them down defensively somehow. Um, and I think that kind of sucks for Vegas. They truly didn't have any competition going up into here. So, yeah, I think I got Dallas and I think I'm going to go Dallas in 6, buddy. I like what Anger's doing. I like Miro Heiskanen. I like Pavelski, your boy, um, Jason Robertson. They're all
Mm-hmm.
doing a fantastic job over there. But F you, Jamie Benn. I'll never forget what you did to Dylan Larkin.
No, it's still fuck Jamie Benn all day, every day. I'm gonna pick Dallas too, but I might just turn off the TV if they win the cup if Jamie Benn is up next, and I'll turn it back on when he doesn't have the cup in his hands because I still hate him. I think he's a rat fuck, and I really don't like him. And I hope he stubs his toe on his coffee table tonight. But of course, I don't want it to break anything because they need him to play. Um, I think I do want to take Dallas again. I think it's gonna go 7-2. This series is gonna be a rock fight. I mean, they both are. Both these series are gonna be so entertaining. Both these series are gonna be playoff hockey personified, where it's just gonna be so tough to win, so tough to score, to find chances. It's gonna be physical. Players are gonna come out there with two broken kneecaps and a missing back muscle. It's gonna be an absolute war in all these series, and I think just like with you, Dallas is the deeper team. They definitely have better goaltending. I think Vegas is under like their third stringer right now. I could be wrong about that, but they're still a really good team. I mean, Jack Eichel, you
Yeah.
will kind of go back to when you said you didn't think he was a top 10 player. I think I would have agreed with you in like game 81 of this regular season, but Jack Eichel has been scoring at a
Yeah.
very impressive rate. I mean, that guy, if Vegas goes on to the Stanley Cup final, and hell, even if they lose it, he might still win the Conn Smythe. That dude is on another level, and I think he is kind of doing what we all thought he would do in the playoffs. It just took him pretty much his whole career to get here. And
Yeah.
I gotta be honest with you, he's a guy that I've been rooting for a while. Ever since he had that neck injury in Buffalo and they wouldn't let him get the surgery, and it really kind of looked like at a point that his career was coming to an end. So thank God he was finally able to get out of that situation, and now he's with a team that loves him and values him. Um, but yeah, all that being said, I'm trying to. Who did Vegas even play in the second round? My brain is just an absolute mush. I've been
Oilers.
watching hockey nonstop. Oilers, yeah, thank you, the Oilers. So yeah, they're not playing against Stuart Skinner again. They're playing against Jake Ottinger, who he hasn't looked like the goalie we all know that he can be, but he's still been a really good player on Dallas. I think he's been dialed in, and he's just had a few blemishes on his record, but yeah, Dallas to me is just the better team all around. I got them in 7. I got to be honest. So yeah,
Yeah.
that gives us the Dallas and Florida Cup final. I'm sure everybody predicted that at the beginning of the season, and yeah, I'm excited for it. It's nice to get some new blood.
At the end of the day, honestly, you look at both of these conference finals, it is just a bit of fresh air seeing different teams for once. I mean, granted, yeah, Vegas made it to the finals their first year in the NHL, but still, they didn't make it last year, so it's still a bit of fresh air. I know Carolina's won a couple cups. I don't think the Panthers have. Not sure how many cups Dallas Stars have won, but nonetheless,
Only
still
one.
really refreshing. How many?
Only one. In 1998, I want to say, or 99,
Start winning more. Maybe
I
this is your
think.
year finally.
Yeah.
Well, my
Win
boss
another
is a
cup,
big Dallas
losers.
Stars fan.
We have 10 more. Get on our
Start
level.
catching up to us, Dallas. What the hell are you guys doing over there? Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
We say as the team's in seventh place.
yeah. If anyone thinks that this is boring hockey or that any of these teams are boring or that the NHL is hurting by having these teams in the conference finals, you're absolutely wrong. This does nothing but grow these teams, and I think it tremendously grows the NHL. I mean, look at Florida, South Florida right now. Not only do they have the Florida Panthers in it, but they have the Miami Heat in their playoffs in the NBA as well. So that whole entire city's going nuts. So you got all these different types of fans just hanging around trying to course with each other and telling them like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing. Maybe we can convert you into a fan. Blah 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 blah. Same thing with Dallas. Dallas isn't a hot commodity for hockey. That's really good for their state. That's really good for the league. Same thing with Vegas. Vegas, they're out in the freaking desert too. Carolina. What do they got? They're in the East Coast. They learn. I've never been to Carolina to be honest, so I don't know what they got.
I I think I've been. I don't even remember what city it was. I think it was Raleigh, but that's where the Canes play. And
Yep.
Raleigh's a nice city, man. I mean, it's not a big city. It's not like a Chicago or New York, or it's probably on the same level as Detroit, but it's pretty nice. Nice, clean city. Very friendly people. Um, yeah, if the Canes win the cup, I got no issues with it. I would love to see it because we've said this on previous episodes. The way the Carolina Hurricanes play and the way their roster is constructed, they don't have that superstar, and they just all buy into team defense. That's probably what Detroit's going to look like in a few years because we're not getting a superstar. It's just not going to happen. But if everyone buys into a system and a certain few players who I will not name step up their production, we could be the next Carolina. I'm just going to say it right now.
Leslie, I appreciate the segue talking about all these different cities and places. So let's talk about the Arizona Coyotes, who have been denied by the people of Tempe, Arizona, to build their 2.1 entertainment district and arena there. Leslie, what does this mean for the organization and its fan base? A lot of sadness.
It means that hopefully this long nightmare is finally over. I do just want to preface this before I go into Arizona and the Coyotes. We joke about the Coyotes franchise a whole lot. They've really just been a laughing stock ever since they've been in the league, but they do have a very small, passionate fan base. And I'm speaking as a sports fan first and foremost. If I knew that I had a really good chance to lose my favorite franchise, I don't even know what I would do with myself. I really don't. I would probably stop watching hockey if tomorrow the Red Wings ceased to exist. I would no longer be a hockey fan. I mean, I don't know what we would do with this podcast. Maybe we'd start talking about disc golf or something. Who the hell knows? Like, this is all we got. So I really do feel for those people. Honestly, ultimately, through this whole scandal, the fans are the ones that end up getting hurt the most. It's not the ownership group. It's not the city of Tempe. It's not the citizens. It's the fans. And it really sucks. I do feel for them. However, how long have we been talking about Arizona relocating or the team folding? They're playing in a goddamn college arena right now. This had to happen sooner or later. And we even still have talks on Twitter of them trying to find a new site in Mesa to play. And, of course their ownership was asking, hey, where should we play next year? Just stop. I mean, it's over. The dream's dead. I don't know. I think we all figured there was an end in sight, and it really kind of seems like we're already at that end. And I should say that it's pretty likely that they're going to play in Mullet Arena next year. They're not just all of a sudden this offseason going to find a new city to move into. A little bittersweet. It's going to be pretty awkward to watch them at the draft taking their players, and those players don't know where they're going to be playing the next few years. it's just a tough situation, and I really wish the market of Arizona could have worked better. I think it's a really fun market. It's something very different, and we've seen that hockey can work in the desert. It's working in Vegas right now. I mean, they're in the conference finals. In their first year, they were in the Stanley Cup final. It can work in the desert. It can work in the South. All four teams in the conference finals are in the South. I don't know. It's just sad, but it needs to happen at this point.
Yeah, I feel bad for the fans. I don't feel bad for the organization, or at least the people who own it and work in it. You guys did this to yourselves. Bettman also did you guys no favors. He truly held that organization's hand ever since they turned into the Arizona Coyotes, which was back in 1996 when they came from Winnipeg. They used to be the Winnipeg Jets from 1972 to 96 and then converted to the Phoenix Coyotes. And then now being the Arizona Coyotes because they got kicked out of Phoenix. So, since 2000 and 2001 season, they've made the playoffs 5 times. They tried to put
In
in
the
a
conference
bid.
finals once.
They tried to get an entertainment district built that would have costed $2.1 billion. Tempe, the people of Tempe got to vote on it. They denied that. The Arizona Coyotes don't have enough fans in the city of Tempe. Uh, it's it's just really interesting. It just feels like that no one in Arizona truly wants them there anymore. I mean, they're tweeting out today to their fans on social media, where should we find our new home? Why are you asking the fan base? They're not just gonna be like, oh yeah, there's a nice land like spot over here that I know that's across the street from my house that you could play
Yeah,
at.
my buddy Jim's got an outdoor rink. Maybe you could ask him to play there. He charges $5,000 an hour. Maybe you could go over there. Like, what are they gonna say? What are they gonna do? This is not
It's
their
just
problem.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. And, the way that the ownership and the people handling the organization, it just is a big slap to the face to those fans that actually pay the season tickets or just get the tickets to go to the games. And then the fans that are actually going to the college arena that they're currently playing at. I mean, like, they are literally just getting slapped in the face left and right by not only the organization, but by the league and all these other teams, organizations, and players in the league. They're pissed because a lot of the money that they lose on their paychecks go to teams like this that are non-profitable. Like I said, they haven't made the playoff. They've made the playoffs 5 times in the last 23 seasons. That's horrible. That's garbage. It's hot garbage. This is not something that we need. And Leslie's right. We Dallas, Vegas, all the California teams, granted they're not in the desert, but it's still hotter than balls over there. We have seen that it works in markets like this. The reason why it's not working in Arizona, I'm not going to sit here and say that I know what it is, but I feel like it's because the ownership just does not know what the hell they're doing. And they might as well should just sell the team. So let's go ahead and start talking about some landing spots that the Arizona Coyotes could potentially be at. Because I do not foresee them being in Arizona. I'll give them, they will be playing in Mullet Arena next year. They already came out and said that. I'll give them 2 or 3 more years until that franchise is out of Arizona and they're called something else. Potential
I
landing
think
spots that I've been. Yeah,
I
hold on,
think they
Leslie.
have 2 more years on their deal
Yeah.
with Mullet Arena, so I don't see any reason why they wouldn't just play out that deal and see what happens later. I mean, the ownership group is still clinging on to hope they're going to stay in Arizona. This was your last chance, though. I mean, it's just not going to happen. And if we're being honest, if the ownership group was competent in the first place, they would have never left Gila River Arena. They didn't pay their rent, and they got kicked out by the city of Glendale. That's the whole reason they're playing in the college arena. It should have never got to this point, but because the ownership is just so inept at their jobs, and they're always looking at Daddy Bettman to bail them out of trouble for the umpteenth time, that's how they got in this position. So you kind of have to look at yourselves as the ownership group, which of course they're never going to blame themselves, and just say, "Oh shit, maybe we should have gave a shit about this team that we own." it almost kind of gives me shades of the Atlanta Thrashers in their last few years, where the ownership group just was not interested at all in making them competitive. And when has the ownership group for the Coyotes ever been interested in making them competitive? They haven't been competitive since 2012.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Let's talk about some new cities, though. I'm sorry I cut you off there.
No, you're good. And segues talking about Atlanta, that's actually one of the landing spots. So maybe they could be the Jesus,
Oh God.
Murphy Thrashers again. But let's talk about some other cities. Salt Lake, Utah, Houston, Texas,
Okay. Yeah,
big state,
I
Texas,
like Houston.
Atlanta, Georgia, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that would be that. I'm surprised that they
That
don't have a
70s
team
show.
right now. Quebec, that seems to be a big spot that everyone's been talking about how Quebec needs a team. That's been a talking point since they lost their team. However long ago it was, like 20 something years it feels like now. Portland would be a good spot too, in my opinion. I know that they have a major league soccer team out there, but let's go ahead and get them
And the
into some
Trailblazers.
hockey. Yeah. Then you got a random one here. I think this is absurd. Sacramento, California. I don't get that one. And then there was
Okay,
like a
sure, why not?
yeah. Then there was another one too. And I was talking to Leslie before we started recording. I was looking at odds, and it said a potential landing spot was the field. I don't even know what that means. If you guys know what that means, please let me know in the comments. I'm very interested. They had a plus
It's
900
just
odds for a landing spot for Arizona.
it's just a big soccer field. They're gonna
Just
play field hockey.
just a land. Yes, just a
Every
huge
team that
land.
comes every away team that comes to play them is gonna have to pack roller skates instead of skates, like ice skates.
Leslie, let's play this game. This wasn't the game that I had surprise for you, but let's play this game. And it doesn't have to be any of the places that I listed off, but if there was one place that you could move and relocate the Arizona Coyotes, where would you put them? Me, I'd put them in space. They deserve to go into space. Just
Hey,
stay there.
if you have the technology to put them on the moon, I'd love it.
Bezos
In
does.
2075, we're all gonna go up to the moon to watch an NHL game. That sounds great. Imagine the outdoor games up on the moon. Take your breath away, literally. Um, I'm gonna throw out one that I don't think a lot of people have had on their radar, and I think it'd be really interesting. How about Mexico City? Mexico City has a lot of people in it. I haven't looked at the population, but it's it would put some big cities in America to shame. And you look at the NFL; they do games there every year. So I think there's a population down there. I kind of question how popular hockey would be down there, but Vegas was kind of a pie in the sky idea 10 years ago, and now look at it. So I think Mexico City would be really cool. It's not very far at all from a lot of American cities. I mean, I guess it's further away from Canadian cities, but Gary Bettman doesn't care about Canada, so I don't think that's going to be a big obstacle for him. I think that's a potential untapped market down there, and I think it'd be really interesting. Um, Maybe another one. You probably don't have to do this because Houston's already out there, and that seems like a good idea. Maybe San Antonio. That'd be cool too. I, I guess you'd probably have to ask the Spurs if they want to share their building because
Yeah.
I don't think there's another rink down there that would support a team. But there's a dark horse one there that might be interesting.
Yeah,
I don't
one
know. Those are my two ideas. I think Mexico State would be really fun.
I think Mexico State would, or Mexico City, whatever you said, would be really cool for the players that went there. I think it would be a tough sell to convince those players and their families to move to Mexico, though, to be honest with you. Or is Mexico,
Why?
that's,
Mexico is beautiful.
I don't know. I just feel like that's maybe that's me
It's not
because
very
I've never been
expensive.
to Mexico. Maybe that's just part of it. I don't
Hey,
know. I think that
I'll,
that might be a tough sell.
I'll tell you this, Zach. They're not paying as many taxes in Mexico as they are in Canada. So maybe they'd never do that than go to Winnipeg or Calgary or something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. So if you're gonna relocate Arizona, I do think that you have to keep them either in the mountain time zone or you have to keep them out west. Just kind of keep that the way it is. I like the way that the league is. It's spread 16-16. We got to try and keep it that way unless you can move an East Coast team out to the west and just relocate Arizona
Or
to
is that going to
Quebec.
go
But
for that?
I just think that that's a dumb idea. One that I've thought about why don't we start a rivalry between Carolinas and put a team in South Carolina?
Yeah, that'd be cool. I would like that. The one issue is I don't know much about Carolina Hurricanes fans, but I kind of feel like that's one of those things where they all root for Carolina Hurricanes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that same argument could be applied to Seattle, and people might say, well, there's probably a lot of people there who are Vancouver fans since they're right next to each other, and look at Seattle's fan base right now. So I'm not going to rule that one out. That's not a bad idea either.
I would
Hey,
say that my next.
how about
Oh,
this, Zach?
sorry.
Let's get a third New York team. Why not?
Honestly, that kind of popped in my head. I completely forgot Buffalo was in New York. I don't know why,
Okay,
but
so
yeah.
four.
I mean, why not? Yeah, a lot of people with money live in New York, so why not just put a third team there? If I were to pick a
Yeah,
second location, though, I think Milwaukee is prime for a spot.
that'd be
Honestly,
fun.
I think it's silly that they don't have a spot. I mean, if Minnesota can have one, I think Milwaukee is a perfect location. Wisconsin is a big football state. I know that because of the Green Bay Packers. But I know plenty of people. Davy is a good example where he's from the UP and they're so close to Wisconsin. And Davy grew up playing hockey too, being in Michigan. So you got that connection
Mm-hmm.
right there. And so I think that you can get even probably some Michigan fans to become Milwaukee fans if they had an NHL team. It could be worth something. You never know.
Yeah, I think all those cities are definitely better options than Arizona. So one
100.
of them's got to win. The one that I
100.
would like to see, but I don't think it's going to happen is Quebec City, just because they've been waiting for so long, and I really don't see this team getting moved over to the East. Logistically, it makes no sense. Houston is just the perfect city. I mean, in terms of population, I think it's like the fifth or sixth biggest city in America. That's a natural rival of Dallas right there, and they're in the central time zone, so you can keep them in
Mhm.
the central division. I think that if you're going to move the Coyotes, which 99% is going to happen right now, Houston should probably be your first option.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I realistically, I think it's between Salt Lake City, Utah, and Houston, Texas. I mean, and that's close enough for all those Arizona fans to, if they really truly wanted to, spend a weekend, just make a road trip, just go to those states and watch the games. Actually, I don't know how far Arizona is from Salt Lake City, but figure it out. It's your team now. Figure it out. All right. Enough of that segment. Let's go on to the next one. Leslie, let's play a game. I think we might make this a
Oh, I'm
segment
so
from now on
excited.
during the summertime where we play a game and you guys don't know where it is. This is where I like my chaos. Yes. All right. Let's play a game, Leslie. If you were in charge of rules in the NHL, what is one rule change you would make and why? And it could be about anything. It could be about anything in the NHL. It could be anything with the game. It could be about prospects, contracts, salary. It could be about anything the draft as well. Anything.
I kind of have a couple of ideas, but there is one that I've been thinking about for a long time that when I'm watching an NHL game, it just has never made sense to me. If you're playing against a team and you take a penalty and you're on the penalty kill and you somehow manage to, however, just get a breakaway or gain the zone and you can score a shorthanded goal, that should end the power play. I mean, if you're giving up a shorthanded goal, you don't deserve the power play. I have watched, I think, like, actually, if I think really far back to when I was first watching hockey, I kind of just automatically assumed that if you score a shorthanded goal, the power play would end, and then they'd still be on the power play, and I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. But the other team scored, so that should be it, right? Nope, they still get a power play. So I think that's one thing I would change. And then you mentioned prospects, and I did just have one pop into my head that I think would be interesting. Let's get rid of the 9 game limit on an entry level contract. If a prospect is on an entry level contract and they're good enough to play in the big club, keep them up all year so you don't burn a year on the contract. I think it should just go 3 years no matter what and play them as much as you want because we wouldn't get the situation like Simon Edvinsson where he's a guy that we could have used honestly all season or at least most of the season, and we saw from AHL that he was looking pretty good, and he probably could have come up a lot earlier. So I think that going away, there's probably like a whole financial reason that it doesn't go away. I mean, there's some loopholes, so won't even pretend that I know the inner workings of that, but I think that'd be interesting. Just they're on it for 3 years, and either a GM can sign them in the off season, or they just play out the 3 years and then re-sign them. But yeah, get rid of the limit. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, no, I like those ideas. I think, yeah, the limit is a real silly, it's a real silly rule. I think that really does take away from, well, what's the
I
best way
think
to go around this? Like you look at
I
someone like
think what
Connor
it has
Bedard,
to
right?
do I think what it has to do is just the fact that we have a hard cap in the NHL. I think that's pretty much all it comes down to.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the real reason is behind it. I'm assuming it's more so just to protect the players and the teams, due to cap. But you look at situations like a Connor Bedard, right? He comes in, he's gonna play more than 9 games, right? At the age of 18, however old he is, almost 19. Um, then you look at someone like Marco Casper. Well, you're more likely to save those 9 games on Casper than you are Connor Bedard, obviously. Let's just play an
Yeah.
example. Connor Bedard did get drafted by the Red Wings, and you got Marco Casper as well. Well, yeah, you drafted Marco Casper first a year before, but you're not going to go the same route with Connor Bedard as you would for Marco Casper. And if you did draft Connor Bedard, you're probably going to let Marco Casper marinate a little bit longer in the AHL. I really don't know what the reason is behind it, but I think that's a good rule change. I think it's really dumb. I think it excludes you from being able to see that player play in the NHL and then just kind of screws those teams over for letting those players get the experience that they need to become regular NHL players. But for players like Connor Bedard, it doesn't really matter at all at this point. It just increases their likelihood to get signed to a long term deal faster because you burned that 1 year off, right? So, what was your other rule change? I'm sorry, Leslie.
The other one was when a team scores a shorthanded goal, it ends the other team's power play.
You know what? You're not the only one who used to think that. I think when I first started watching hockey too, I was very confused about that rule. And I think that's like a normal thing for people who don't understand the rules of hockey. Oh, yeah, like if you get penalized and you go on a power play, but oh, wait, the other team scored, so shouldn't it be over? No. Oh, okay. I kind of like that rule. I think if you're bad enough to go on the power play and get scored on, yeah, you should probably get that taken away. But we're talking about the NHL here where they want to increase scoring, not decrease it. So I understand that, but I think that creates more chaos. So I do like that idea. If I were to change a rule, me personally, I kind of like the NBA style on how they do their contracts, Leslie. I like the fact that they only do max 4 year deals. I think I'm going to go that route, and I think I'm going to decrease the size of how long you can sign a player in an NHL deal. I think 8 years is a little too long, especially when you see. Let's use Eric Carlson as an example, who signed an 8 year, like, it's not a max deal. There's no such thing as max deals in the NHL unless you want to say Connor McDavid is the max deal at $12.5 million, sure. But Eric Carlson, what is he? It's 8 years, like $10 million or 10.5 or something
Yeah, it's
ridiculous
like
like that.
10.5 or something.
Now you got the San Jose Sharks and cap hell. Their team is going to be bad for quite some time. If they had that shortened by half to only 4 years, they could quickly start turning things around. And then I think that would increase your cap structure for teams and you'd be able to spend more if you had less terms on deals. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that would increase the value on contracts then because you only get to keep them for shorter periods, right? What do you think about that idea?
I think that one, the reason it's not around also kind of goes back to the hard cap, right? Because, yeah, you may be able to give a guy a shorter term deal, but then if they're only going to be on your team for 4 or 5 years, they're going to want like, I don't know, 15, 20 million a year. So, I think, I honestly don't think it's a bad thing that you can sign a player for an 8 year deal maximum. I think it just kind of comes down to like GMs need to be very careful who they spend that type of money on. I mean, Eric Carlson, through like the first few years of that contract, he had the worst contract in the entire NHL. And now he's one of the first defensemen since I don't even know how long to score over 100 points. So, would you really say he's not worth that money now? I personally couldn't give you an argument that he's not worth that money now, but yeah, I think that'd be an interesting one. You definitely see a lot of movement with players around the league, which that's kind of one of the criticisms I give the NBA a lot because
Yeah.
it's like the criticism of like, oh, your players aren't loyal at all. Like the team that drafts them, once their deal is up, they're just going to go to the next super team, right? But I mean, the offseason in the NBA is like the most entertaining part of the sport and all the movement. And yeah, their trade deadline is absolute bananas television to watch. So I think it would definitely make an interesting dynamic in the NHL. I don't necessarily think I want the NHL to go down that route. I am a big fan of drafting players yourself, and if you've got a real good one like Dylan Larkin, you lock him up as long as you can, and that's your franchise player right there. So yeah, I could see the argument for that. I think honestly a lot of NHL players would like that because every year they're just making more money. You know, it's not as fleshed out across 7 or 8 years. The players would definitely love that, but like I said, I think it just comes down to the hard cap, which is a constraint why they can't do that.
The other thing that I would change if I could do a second rule change, the other change would be I would change the way that the draft is structured. And by that, I would say let's do a play-in tournament for who gets the top three picks, or at least the first
I love
overall
it.
pick. I mean, if you're taking the worst six teams, and so you're taking the worst six teams and you're having them play, or it makes more sense if you do eight. So you're taking the eight worst teams, right? You can even do 10 somehow if you wanted to. I don't even care. You take the 10 worst teams and you let them play in a play in tournament to see who picks where. All the other teams outside of the top 10, I'm sorry. You probably just had something wrong happen to you in the season where you just had a bunch of injuries. You probably should have been a playoff team and you just didn't make it into the playoffs. I'm sorry. You don't get to play in that tournament. I think that that's part of the rule change that I'm making. I hate the idea that any team is able to move up at least 10 spots because we were looking at that, right? Like where we were on Tankathon and randomly you'd see the Pittsburgh Penguins move up from 14th to third or fourth overall. And I was like, no, fuck that. That's garbage. I would be so mad if that actually happened. And that's on them. Like they shouldn't have a chance at getting a top 3 pick or a top 5 pick. I think the teams that are stuck in the top 10, and you can even go based on track record too. You can even go by win percentage in the last 5 years. But I do think that there needs to be something changed within the draft to where it's more fair to teams that like yeah, I just think that the Red Wings get shafted every year. Their win percentage has not been great in the last 7, 8 years. Then you look at teams like the Washington Capitals who won the Stanley Cup like 3 years ago, and then all of a sudden now they make it into the top 10 of the draft because of just one year where they had a bunch of injuries. Next year they could make the playoffs. They actually could. I think that they could. If they kept their whole entire
You
team and they
could.
just made a couple changes, they really could. And I think it's garbage that they get a top 10 pick, to be honest with you. So that's probably a rule that I would change is kind of do it like a play-in tournament for the top 10 picks. Just figure it out that way instead of doing the lottery because the lottery system is not working. And a lot of fans were pissed at the NBA on their lottery system. So I'm kind of thankful of the NHL lottery compared to the NBA, but it still needs to be fixed. It's still bad. What do you think about that, Leslie?
I just think the fact that you can drop a spot in the NHL and NBA lottery has to be one of the dumbest things to ever happen. I mean, when you play the actual lottery and you put money down on a scratcher, the worst that happens to you is you just don't win and you lost that money. It's not like you put down money and then you lost and there's a penalty for losing and you lose 5 times the amount you put down. It just makes absolutely no sense. And yeah, I think there needs to be a knockout system with lottery picks. I think it needs to come down to number one. If you've had a first overall pick in a certain amount of time, let's say 10 years. 10 years you've had a number one pick, you're automatically ineligible. And if you've won the cup in the last 10 years, you're automatically ineligible. So that would leave teams like, geez, I don't even know. I'd have to look at the draft order again, but there'd be like 4 or 5 teams contending for number one instead of whatever it was, 11 teams. I think that would
Well,
be
I
more
think,
interesting. And it's just like,
yeah.
it's almost kind of like bad luck protection, right? Like if you're a team like the Red Wings and it's just like, oh, you guys have been down in the dumps and you haven't won anything in a while. It's very clear the franchise needs that boost. And I'm not even just going to say the Red Wings, even though we are a Red Wings centric podcast. Vancouver's got screwed in the lottery a lot too.
Yeah.
So it's not just them. I'm trying to think of other teams that have been screwed in the lottery. Anaheim gets screwed pretty consistently, but they did get number 2 overall. So
But
whatever.
then you
I
but
just
then you
think there
look
needs
at
to be
all these.
some bad luck protection.
Yeah, well, and then you look at some of these other teams like Chicago, how many times that they've got lucky in the draft lottery? I mean, what, that one year they
Yeah.
were like 12th or something and they moved up to third overall? That's
Yeah.
garbage.
And they got Doc. Yeah.
The
Yeah. No,
Rangers, when we
it's
should have
stupid.
won the first overall pick and we lost it,
It's
when they
stupid.
lost in the playoff Robin round, it's garbage. It's bullshit. Like
Yeah.
the NHL really needs to fix this.
The way it's done is just, it's so counterintuitive. I don't even really know how to frame it. But yeah, I think in a team in the case of Detroit, I mean, they're really the best example, even if I look at it objectively, of just bad luck protection. Like, if you've moved down a spot in the past few lotteries, you should not have that available as an option again. You should not move down at all. And the worst thing that can happen to you is you stay put. But like all these different ideas, it's so hard to like logistically put all of this stuff together. I almost feel like even though we know this is the way it should be, it's never gonna work practically in the first place. How about we just get rid of the lottery? Just get rid of it. I don't
Yeah.
even care about it at this point. It's just stupid. I hate the lottery. I hate it so much. And you may say, oh well, teams are just gonna start blatantly tanking now. They're already doing it.
Yeah.
They're already doing it. I mean, did the Red Wings not blatantly tank in 1920? They're already doing it. You're never going to stop that. If there is even a slight chance at number one overall, and it's a guy like in this draft, Bedard, teams are going to tank. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if there's not a 100% guarantee. They're going to do it anyway. So I don't know. I just hate the lottery.
No, I
And
agree. I think the lottery
I
should be
hate it.
ditched. Yeah, it should be ditched 100%. It's garbage. I think the NBA and NHL are truly lacking in that sense with their lotteries. I mean, the Pistons, they ended up with the fifth and they were the worst team in the league. It's garbage. So,
Yeah, that should not happen. It's just so stupid. And like we look at the NFL and it's like teams are just going to tank. Like every year there's like 3 or 4 teams that tank. It's not like there's one team like the Lions. I'm not going to use the Lions as an example because they've sucked forever. Um who's won the number one pick recently? Like I guess like the Jaguars, right? Like they have a good team around them and they're not going to tank anymore because they got that number one pick.
yeah.
And they're like, okay, we got Trevor Lawrence. Now we can compete. That's what it is. You're not going to get one team just tanking and trying to get all the number one overall picks. If you have a team like that every year, there's something really wrong. It's not just banking on the lottery. It's not just banking on tanking to make a good team. If a team really, really needs help, regardless of what their situation is, they just came out of a championship window or all their good players left in free agency and trade, whatever it may be, if a team needs help, you gotta help them. It's a formula for a thriving, successful, what's the word I'm
League.
trying to think of? Not league. It's just a good formula for parity in the league. So yeah, I don't know. I hate the lottery. Yeah, you can't bank on lottery luck every year, but you're still going to tank and try to get a good pick. Teams are going to do it no matter what system's in place. You're not going to stop it.
And teams like Chicago and Anaheim, just because they're picking first and second, doesn't mean that they won't be doing it next year again. And that's the harsh reality of the
Most
NHL
likely
versus
won't.
the NHL versus the NFL, where, yeah, if you get the top pick, your top pick most likely is going to be a quarterback 75% of that time. And that puts your team well above than what they were that previous year. Whereas in the NHL, it's not like that whatsoever. While, yes, Chicago's getting a Connor Bedard, they easily can get the first overall pick next year as well with having a Connor Bedard. Have you seen their roster? It's garbage. Same thing with the Ducks. They have John Gibson. They have Trevor Zegras. They have Mason McTavish. They have Jamie Drysdale, but that's not going to make them better than a bottom 5 team in the league. They're still going to be a bottom 5 team for sure, and that's what makes the lottery system just bad in general. Um and I guess it just makes it really hard for NHL teams to actually get good players because, yeah, now you got these teams that are trying to, rig's not the right word, but yeah, kind of rigged where, oh, we're not tanking, but we're going to purposely try and be bad. Because that's
Yeah.
what it is. It's just bad for the game, honestly. All right, Leslie, I think that's enough about the Let's Play a Game segment. So let's move to our draft prospect profile of David Reinbacher. Um, some people have him classified as the top defenseman in the draft. Um, some might say Axel Sandin Pellikka, but let's go ahead and break him down for you guys. He's a 6'2", 187-pound right-handed defenseman. He'll most likely play in the NHL as a top 4 defenseman. At best, he will be a number 2 defenseman. At least a bottom pairing guy who just plays shutdown defense, kind of like an Ole Mata type of guy. Currently plays with EHC Cloton in the I think it's the National League. It's the Swiss League. So that is the top league, Leslie, because we talked about that with Austin
Yeah.
Matthews and how Austin Matthews played there as well. Um, and his 22 or in 46 games played this season, he put up 22 points, 3 goals, 19 assists. Currently ranks anywhere as high as 5th and as low as 35th in majority of mock drafts rankings. So what makes David Reinbacher such a highly touted defenseman? Well, him shooting right definitely helps. The comparison of being a Moritz Seider definitely helps too. Where's the comparison come from? Right-handed shot, 6'2", just needs to add a little bit of weight on top of him too. And his trajectory into the NHL is quite the same as Moritz Seider's. I mean, they both come out of leagues that aren't highly scouted. I mean, how many players do you know come out of the Swiss league that are actually really good? Not very many. Austin Matthews is one of the few, I feel like. I
Yeah.
think Roman Yossi also did.
Roman Yossi, Nico Hischier, I
Mhm.
think, played there. That's pretty much all I got. I don't really know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I saw this one stat. I think it was Roman Yossi's draft plus 1 year, if I'm saying that right. It was the year after he was drafted. He played in the Swiss League, and he put up 2 more points than David Reitenbacher did this season. So I don't know what you want to take away from that. If David Reinbacher is automatically now better than Roman Yossi is, or if that's what he can pan out to being. But that's where the Moritz Seider uh, aspect and comparison comes from because his strengths include playing amazing defense. He knows how to be in the right spots to break up rushes and plays developing. He's really hard on the boards, knows how to get the puck away from his peers, especially while he's in the World Junior Championship. He's still really working on it on his defensive game in the Swiss League. The offense was already there, kind of like how Moritz Seider was in the DEL, and they told him, if you want to be drafted in the NHL and highly, you have to start working on your defense. And that's what they did to Moritz Seider. And that's what they're doing to David Reinbacher. And his talent truly did showcase in the World Junior Championship. I actually don't have his points written down, and I'm sorry that I don't. But a little bit more about him. He has a pretty decent shot. It's not the hardest shot, but he just knows where to put the puck. And he just knows how to find the open lanes to make those plays and shoot the puck and actually score. Going into his defensive play, once again, the board play, he plays a really physical game where he isn't attack the opposition to disrupt the play. Once Some things that he does need to improve on is his skating. He's not a bad skater, but he's definitely not like Axel Sandin Pellikka, where Axel Sandin Pellikka, he's just I don't know. He just kind of reminds me of Oliver Moore in that sense, where his edges are just so good. He can turn on a dime. He's Axel Sandin Pellik's a north, south, east, west skater. David Reinbacher's more north south kind of guy, not very explosive, but he definitely knows how to move on his skates for sure. When he does make the decision to attack, sometimes he will overcommit, thus leaves players open to scoring opportunities on the rush. That's something he's just going to have to work on. Moritz Seider did the exact same thing. That's just something you learn from when you are a defenseman. You just got to be able to learn when's the right time to do it and when isn't. And then other than that, he really just needs to add some weight. Like I said, he's 187 pounds at 6'2". Let's see if we can get you up to 200 by next year, or at least come draft day. Um, Overall, his comp brings a lot of Mo Seider in him. Kind of similar path, like I said, towards the draft. He plays overseas, works on his defensive game while already maintaining offensive awareness. I do believe that he will get taken in the top 10, and it's not because teams need to take a defenseman right away, but because I do think that he can be that talented. Teams are going to be taking him based on what he can be, not because they need a defenseman right now and just because he is a right shot, but because of what he can be. And I am hearing a lot of Mo Seider comparables. I keep on putting that out there. Is this someone I would take for the Red Wings at number 9? No, I don't think I would. Me personally, I like Axel Sandin Pellikka's game a little bit more. Um, having having Moritz Seider is good on his skates, but he's not as fluent as like an Axel Sandin Pellikka, and so that's where David Reinbacher gets his comparable from. So if I'm looking at your defensive core, where let's say it's Evanson, Seider on the top pair, and then you got, let's just say you're putting William Wallander on the left, and you're pairing him with David Reinbacher. I think that that's a little too similar of players. I think I'd probably go with more of an Axel Sandin Pellikka, who's a little more shifty with the puck, just really good on his skates and can find a lot more open space to create for the players, and he can quarterback. I mean, both can quarterback. David Reinbacher can quarterback a power play. So can Axel Sandin Pellikka. Um, but yeah, I think I'd rather spend my second pick, the 17th overall pick, on a defenseman. If Axel Sandin Pellikka is there, I'm willing to take that risk. But I do think that David Reinbacher is taken in the top 10. And I do think that that's either going to be the Montreal Canadiens or that's going to be the Arizona Coyotes. Leslie, what do you have to say on David Reinbacher? Long-winded answer, I know. What did I leave for you? I said it all.
I'm really kind of getting tired of the Mo Seider comparison with David Reinbacher. I mean, we can't just look at this guy and be like, oh yeah, big European defenseman, plays in a weird league, limited offensive upside. Those guys don't always become Mo Seider. He could very well become the next Luke Schenn. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with being Luke Schenn. He's a solid defenseman, but that's probably a guy you can get in the third or fourth round, not in the top 10. David Reinbacher, I will say, out of all the defensemen I've seen in this draft, he is the one that plays the best overall defense. So, yeah, his offense at the NHL level, I think, is still a big question mark and probably will be for a few years through his development. But the fact he already plays the style of defense he does means that he's going to be a pretty good asset for teams. And I've seen mock drafts from not only just the fans, but hockey writers too, and a good amount of them have him going in the top 10, and if he's not in the top 10, he's right outside it, so when there's smoke, there's fire. People are clearly high on this kid. When I watch him play, I understand why people are high on him, but I'm just thinking in the pure sense of what the Red Wings are going to do at pick number 9, while it wouldn't shock me if they took Reinbacher, I wouldn't be thrilled with it. I think it would kind of come down to who else is there at that pick, but I still think there'd be a lot of forwards there I'd rather have over Reinbacher. I'm not going to sit here and list them off because we'll probably end up covering a lot of them as the show rolls on towards the draft, but Reinbacher does kind of seem like an Heisman pick, I'm not going to lie, and it really helps that he's a right D. Really need that. He wouldn't even be the Hronik replacement. He'd probably be a Hronik upgrade because Hronik, while he did have a pretty good offensive season this year, still had a little bit to desire with defense, which that's kind of just who he was his whole career, anyways. I don't think we were really expecting a huge uptick in his defense numbers. But I get people listening to this are scratching their heads wondering if I like this kid or not. And I'm kind of wondering the same thing too. I'm just going to pull up his stats real quick here. In 46 games, he has 3 goals and 19 assists for 22 points.
Yep.
And he does have a very good point shot. I would wager that a good amount of those assists are from people getting in front of the net and tipping in that point shot. It's a really good point shot. He's got a nice shot. I think there's a lot to like about the kid. I think if we were a Philadelphia Flyers podcast, I'd be banging the table to draft him because he seems like a Philly draft prospect through and through. He is the absolute perfect prospect that they need. Their defense right now, outside of God, who's even there? Provorov? Outside of Provorov,
That's
it's
pretty much it.
booty cheeks. I mean, their defense is terrible. If I'm Danny Briere, that's who I'm taking, David Reinbacher, and then I'm building out from there for the forwards because I don't know. I don't think David Reinbacher is going to be a bust at the NHL level. I think he's going to be a very good defenseman. I think his ceiling might be a guy like Jacob Slavin on Carolina. Jacob Slavin is a really good defenseman. He's a big part of the reason why that team has gotten so far, and they play the way that they do. So if you could beat Jacob Slavin, that's great. That's awesome. I guess that kind of just shows you the type of defenseman we have to pick from in the draft. You compared him to Sandin Pellikka a little bit. I think each one of those guys, I think they're the consensus best 2 defensemen in this draft, regardless of what hand they shoot with. But they are very much their own player. Sandin Pellikka is a really, really good skater. I'd say him and Oliver Moore, they might be tied. Well, I guess Connor Bedard too. They would be tied. It's a 3-way tie for the best skater in the draft. I mean, Sandin Pellikka is just buttery, buttery smooth. And he is a very good puck handler. We haven't profiled him yet, so I'm not going to go too much into detail about him, but that guy, you pair him with a guy like, I don't know, Ole Mata or maybe Edvinsson, he kind of reminds me of like a Quinn Hughes, to be honest. I mean, he is a really, really good skater, and he's very offensively creative, whereas Reinbacher, he's going to just beat the shit out of people in the NHL. And he plays really good defense. Like, you play against him, he's going to smother you the whole game.
Yeah.
I really think he's going to be a really good defenseman, but he may not produce that much offense. And that's fine. If he's a really good defenseman, that offense will just come later. That's no big deal. So, yeah, in terms of the Red Wings, I just don't really see a scenario where Reinbacher is their favorite pick in number 9.
Yeah.
He's definitely not going to make it to pick 17 either. There's no chance that's going to happen. He probably won't even make it to pick number 9 if we're being honest.
Yeah.
If he's there at Washington and Michkov is gone, they're taking him. No doubt they're taking him. So, yeah, there's David Reinbacher. Yeah, I get the Seider comparison. I really do. There's a few comparables there, but if he becomes Mo Seider, I'm not going to bet on it. I'm definitely not going to bet on it.
Yeah, with David Reinbacher, you definitely can make the case that any team in the top 10 could take him. Literally, any team in the top 10 could take him. And they're all going to take him in hopes that he could be their true top pairing defenseman, whether if that's 1 or 2. You know, he's going to play on the right side. He will be the top pairing defenseman on that side. The team that takes him, that's what they're going to hope that he can be. Now, you look at the Red Wings. We already have Moritz Seider on the right-handed side. So is that something that we currently need? No. Is that a nice addition to have 2 top-tier right-handed defensemen for your top 2 pairings? Of course, that's amazing. But the one thing that the Red Wings truly are lacking is top-tier forward talent as well. The best forward that we have, 2 of them, the best 2 that we have are Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond.
pretty much. Yeah.
The third one, I mean, the third one, you can make some arguments. I mean, some would say it's Yanni Burgers. Some would say it's David Perron. Who knows? It's pretty much up in the air after that. So, yeah, I'm probably not going to take a David Reinbacher at 9 if he's there, to be honest. Even if Axel Sandin Pellikka was there at 9, like I said, I don't think I'm taking a right-handed defenseman. I don't think that that's on top of our priority list. While that is a hole that we do need to fill, I don't think that that's the first priority with our ninth overall pick, though. I do think that it's going to be a forward, and it probably should be a winger. A lot of people are probably scratching their heads. Well, why aren't you taking the best defenseman when you could have just a stud core? I just look at all the defensemen that we have, and I think, granted, we're not completely stacked on the right side, but you got a William Wallander who's played on the right-handed side over for Rogla. You got Albert Johansson, supposedly, who was playing on the right-handed side for Grand Rapids Griffins. So we have options there. Just because they don't shoot right-handed doesn't mean that we can't put them on the right. We just did that with Ben Sherrod. He honestly looked better playing on the right side. So yeah, I think I'm okay with not taking David Reinbacher or any type of right-handed defenseman with the ninth overall pick. Now, in our mock draft, I took Tom Willander with our 17th overall pick. That's a right-handed shooting defenseman. Some might even say that he's around in the second round. So there are plenty of other options that you could choose for a right-handed defenseman. So yeah, I think you try to take the best forward possible. So no knock on David Reinbacher, but I do firmly believe that he's going to be a top 10 pick. Um, Whoever takes him, if it's not the Red Wings, I hope he doesn't pan out to be a Mo Sider because that would suck. I would hate to miss out on a talent like that, but
We
nonetheless,
already have one.
yeah, we already have one. I mean, it would imagine having two. It's great.
That's what I dream about at night, baby.
But yeah, like I said, I just don't think that we really should prioritize right-handed defensemen right now. I think forward is the way to go. I mean, we do have, like I said, you have Lucas Raymond, Dylan Larkin. I'm gonna put on my fingers, Yanni Burgers. Now you have Carter Mazer coming up. Daddy P isn't gonna stick around forever. Kubalik isn't gonna stick around forever. You also have Rasmussen and Veleno. Am I missing? That's pretty much it. You have to
About
start
it.
adding more forward talent through the draft. And I think you do that with your ninth pick. You might even do that with the 17th pick. I don't think it's going to be center. I think we're also okay at center. Some fans might hate me for saying that, but who knows? We'll just have to wait and see what Steve Eisenman and company decide to do. Leslie, you got any final thoughts on David Reinbacher before we close it off on his profile?
Yeah, I think whoever takes him in the top 10, I think they're really going to like him. I honestly could
Yeah.
see him go as high as Montreal at number 5. It might be a little bit out of left field because, I don't know. We'll see who's there on draft day, but
Yeah.
I really feel like whoever takes him is going to love him because a lot of teams across the league need defensive help and on the right side too, not even just the left side. So, yeah, number 9, I'm not going to say that we need him, and I'm not going to put him number 1 on my draft board. But if Philly, Arizona, Montreal, Washington gets him, I think they're going to be thrilled. I really do.
Yeah, and good for them. Honestly, I'm right there with you. But yeah, if he's there at 9, I'm not taking him. Sorry, David. Love you, but not to the Wings. I guess the farthest I could see him drop, honestly, I mean, if you had both David Reinbacher and
St.
Axel
Louis?
Sandin Pellikka on the board, does St. Louis or Vancouver take a swing at one of those two? I would imagine Vancouver probably does it first.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Honestly, I think if David Reinbacher's there at 10, St. Louis is all over that. They're probably going to get in trouble for putting the pick in too quickly. Um, yeah, I mean, it just kind of goes back to what I said. It's just, he's a very valuable player. I'm not going to say he's not someone the Wings need because they need right D, but they need forward number 1. I'd say right D is number 2. That's just the way it works out. And I think some GMs are going to feel the same way as me. Others will feel different. And as I said before, I don't think he's even going to make it to 9. So I don't even think it's a conversation worth having.
We'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, the last time we talked about it too, the last time that a defenseman was not picked in the top 10, it was 2003 or something like that. So it's been
Yeah,
20
I
years.
think so.
So maybe this is the year. Who knows? It's pretty
See.
deep offensively, so would not be shocked. But also, there's always that team that makes the reach. You never know. Like you said, we did that with Mo Sider. People were shocked about it. So keep your eyes peeled on Montreal, Arizona, and all those other teams ahead of us. Maybe they take David Reinbacher. Leslie, that's it, buddy. We're done. It goes by
Yes,
a
we
lot
are.
quicker when Derek's not here, huh?
Yeah, I still miss him though, dearly.
I still miss him too. Hopefully, he's having fun in La La Land over there in Vegas. Hopefully, he put some
Oh
money
yeah.
on the blackjack table for me, like I asked him to, because I want him to come back rich and buy us a studio for the pod. Pod studio only. Well, technically, we're in one, but space where we're all together here in Toledo. You guys moved to Toledo with me.
Heck yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and close it off with some final thoughts, Leslie. But before we do that, actually, what's upcoming? I still got to figure it out. We all got to figure it out. Derek's going to be gone in the next time that we record as well. Maybe we'll have a special guest. I don't know. We'll try to figure it out. Final thoughts, Leslie. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, at the time of this recording, we're just wrapping up. It's 9 o'clock right now, so I am excited to start off the conference finals round of the playoffs. And these are going to be really, really entertaining games. I'm going to kind of go back to what you said earlier. Like, if you're not a fan of this style of hockey and you think it's boring, you may just not be a hockey fan, to be honest, because this is this is where the men get separated from the boys, baby. This is going to be a fun round to watch, and if this round is any indication, this is going to be a Stanley Cup Finals for the ages. Instant classic.
Those are your final thoughts?
Yes, sir.
My final thoughts are I agree with Leslie. I think you're not a hockey fan if you think that these conference finals are going to be lame. I think this is great for the league, especially for teams like the Florida Panthers, the Golden Knights, and Dallas. Let's showcase that teams do belong in the mountain areas and the desert areas and the West Coast. Yeah, let's move Arizona. Let's get them to a place where fans can actually appreciate them, or let's sell into an ownership that actually sees value in them. Let's sell into Ryan Reynolds and Snoop Dogg, for Christ's sake. My goodness, they do a better job than the current ownership. Um, Go Red Wings. For those of you that are currently subscribed, thank you for joining us once again. For those of you that are new, thank you for joining us. And as always, make sure you're hitting that like button. Make sure that you're going on Spotify, following us, and rating us 5 stars. And as always, let us know how we're doing in the comments. We really love hearing from you guys.
Love you guys.
Bye, everyone.